How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Mem Vav, I think, of Daf 46 of Masechta BavaKama. Friends, today we start the fifth parak of Masechta BavaKama. BavaKama is 10 prokim. So we're starting the fifth. We're moving over here, and we're Daf Mem Vav. 46 daf into BavaKama. Friends, 46 daf, that's a significant, we're in it. We're like in BavaKama. It's gewaldig, right? It's gewaldig. Alright, well, we're going to start the fifth parak. Here we go. Today's daf actually is not so hard, I don't think, hopefully. So, okay, it says the Mishnah, Shoshanogach es apare. We're starting from the new parak, right? In daf Mem Vav Medalef. Shoshanogach es apare. An ox that gores a cow. Now, v'nimtza ubra b'tzida. So an ox gores a cow, and the cow, I guess, is dead. And next to it, the baby, there's a baby, it was pregnant, and the baby is lying next to it dead also. V'nidoim ad shelo nagcha yalda im mishenagcha yalda. And it's unclear if the baby was born before the mother got gored to death, or if the baby was born after, or sort of because of the fact that the mother got gored to death. So the question is the dead baby, or is the owner of the what? I don't know what I said, but the ox gored the cow to death, and now there's a dead baby next to the cow. So is the owner of the ox responsible for the dead baby or not? If the baby was born before the goring, so it has nothing to do with the owner of the ox. If it was sort of killed as part of the goring, so then the owner of the ox is responsible. So mishalim chatzi nezek lepara. Okay, so the owner of the ox needs to pay chatzi nezek for the dead cow. And in terms of the dead baby, v'revia nezek levalod, and 1/4 damages for the dead baby cow. And as we're going to see at the beginning of the Gemara, that this is the opinion of Sumchus that we saw the other day, that Sumchus says, right, I don't know if that's the exact verbatim thing, but, if we're uncertain, so we split it in half. Whereas we're going to see the opinion of the rabbis, though, is Hamotzi Mechaver Olavara, you'd have to prove it. Okay, anyways, over here we're saying that the owner of the ox would pay Chatzi Nezek for the cow. And in terms of the dead baby, since we don't know if the baby died on account of the goring or not, so you pay half damages for the baby, i.e. 1/4 damages. V'chein, and similarly, Parish Nogcha es Ashor. If a cow gores an ox, v'nimtza vlada b'tzida, and then we see that there's a dead baby next to the cow, and the question is, was the cow still pregnant at the time of the goring or not? Or had it already given birth? We don't know if the cow had already given birth before it gored the ox, or if at the time that it gored the ox it was still pregnant and only gave birth later. Mishtalem chatzi nezek min hapare v'revia nezek min havolod. So chatzi nezek is paid from the cow, and 1/4 nezek is paid from the the dead baby, and or no, I don't know if it's necessarily dead in this case actually, but 1/4 would be paid from the baby, and the Gemara is going to explain exactly what's going on over there. Now says the Gemara, Amar Viuda Amar Shmuel, says Viuda in the name of Shmuel, Zo Divrei Sumchis. Says I mentioned a few minutes ago, this is the opinion of Sumchis, right? When we say that if an ox gores a cow, and then it turns out that not only the cow is dead, but there's also a dead baby cow, so we don't know, was the cow still pregnant at the time of the goring, and i.e. is the owner of the ox responsible to pay also for the chatzi nezek for the dead baby. So we say, since we're not sure, so pay for half of the chatzi nezek, i.e. 1/4 of the nezek. So again, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Zo Divrei Sumchis. This is the opinion of Sumchis. De Amar Mamen Amuto B'Safek Cholkin. who says that when you have money that we're uncertain about, split it. Split it. Cheved, this Shabbos, I believe, is, or at least the Shabbos that I'm recording it, is Parshas Miketz. Parshas Miketz is a parsha that I'm familiar with. And it's always on Shabbos Chanukah, except when it's not. This year it's not Shabbos Chanukah, which means that the Haftorah of Parshas Miketz, when it's not Shabbos Chanukah, is the Haftorah of Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, who with the cutting the baby in half. So here Oichit, Sumcha says, if we're not sure, just split it in half. The Chacham says, Zeklal Gadol Badin, this is a big rule when it comes to monetary cases, Hamotzi Mechavero, Olav Haraya. That if somebody wants to extract payment from his fellow, it is, the burden of proof is upon him. And therefore, in this case, an ox gored a cow to death, and now there's also a baby over there. The owner of the cow is claiming that, well, the cow was still pregnant when it got gored and you're responsible to pay for the baby. The owner of the ox says, prove it. And if the owner of the cow wants to get paid for the baby, he's going to have to prove it. And if he can't prove it, then he can't get anything. He gets nothing. We don't split it like sumchus according to the rabbis, right? So again, the Chacham says that klal gadol badin. This is the big rule when it comes to monetary cases. Amotzi mechaveru olav haraya. If you are attempting to extract payment from your fellow, you must bring proof. Lamli lemeimar zeklal gadol badin. How come we have to make such a big deal? Zeklal gadol badin. Ooh, this is a big fancy rule. What's so big and fancy about it that we had to call it so big and fancy? Itzrich da afilu nizak omer bari umazik omer shema. Nonetheless, amotzi mechaver olav haraya. Even in a scenario where the nizak, right, in our case, the owner of the cow, says, I know 1,001% that at the time that my cow, my innocent, loving, talented cow that had a bright future, at the time that it was ruthlessly gored to death before its time, it was pregnant. The owner of the cow says, I know for sure that the cow is pregnant. And the owner of the ox says, could be you're right, I don't know. So I might think in that case, if the owner of the cow is bari, he's certain, the owner of the ox is shema, he's not certain, I might think, okay, so the owner of the cow should win out and he should get paid. No, even in that case, amotzi mechaver olav haraya, still, if the owner of the cow wants to get paid for the baby, he must prove that the cow was in fact pregnant at the time that it was gored to death. Okay, so the point of the klal gadol, the big rule, is that it's so big that even in a scenario where the nizak is certain, still he's going to have to prove it. Inami, alternatively, l'chiyad itmar, it's like that which is stated, amocher shor lachavero. If Ruvain sells his ox to Shimon, v'nimtza nagchin, and it turns out, can we flip it around? Shimon sells his ox to Ruvain, and it turns out that the ox is a real shtunk. It's a real shmendrik. It gores people. So now Ruvain goes back to Shimon and says, Shimon, you sold me a shmendrik. So Rav Amar Areze Mekachtos. So Rav says it's a faulty sale. It's a mekachtos. It's a mistaken sale, right? Ruvain's basically coming to Shimon and saying, "Look, Shimon, I bought an ox. I didn't buy a shmendrik, so take it back." Ushmuel Amar, but Shmuel says, "Yochel sheyomar lo." Shimon can say to Ruvain, "L'shchita macharti l'cha." Look, I sold it to you to eat it, to slaughter it, to eat it. Why'd you keep it around? You should have just killed it and eaten it. So in that case, right? Reuven is coming to Shimon and saying, Shimon, you sold me a shmendrik. Shimon is saying, okay, but you were supposed to slaughter it. I'm not giving you your money back. If you want your money back, Reuven, prove to me that I saw, that you had bought it for plowing, which is the other use for an ox. Prove to me that you bought it for plowing, i.e. to keep it around to plow, and that you weren't just meant to slaughter it right away. If you could prove that, so then fine, you can get your money back. But otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, I sold it to you to slaughter. It's not my fault that you kept it around and it gored and it gored people. So we see that according to Shmuel, we'd say Amotzi Mechaver Olav Araya. Okay. But Amai, why would we have to say Amotzi Mechaver Olav Araya there, that Reuven is going to have to prove it? Why don't we just see? V'nechze igaver de zoven l'ridja, igaver de zoven l'nichsosa. Is Reuven a person who buys oxen for eating, or is he a person who buys oxen? He's a farmer and he needs oxen to work his fields. So if he's a person who generally buys oxen to work his fields, so then you can assume that he bought this to work his fields. But if he's somebody who normally buys it for shechita, so then you can assume that he bought this for shechita as well. So meaning that we should be able to just tell what the purpose of the sale was. So well, it's talking about where Reuven buys oxen for both intents, for both purposes, both for eating as well as for plowing. But still, if you need to prove if the ox was sold for eating or sold for plowing, let's see, how much did it cost? Right? An ox that's sold for plowing is going to be more expensive than an ox that's sold to just kill and eat. We're talking about a scenario where the price of meat increased so that it was the same price as the price of meat increased so that the sale of an ox for eating would be similar to the sale of an ox for plowing. So therefore, Reuven's going to have to prove that the ox was sold for plowing if he's going to want to get his money back. Otherwise, Shimon's going to say, look, I sold it to you to slaughter and eat. Amrei, and they say, now, if Shimon doesn't have money to give him a refund, right? Reuven's saying, look, I want to give you back your cow. It's causing me tsaris. Give me back my money. If Shimon doesn't have money to give him back, so then Reuven should just keep the ox anyways in lieu of a refund, because if Shimon doesn't have money, you may as well keep the ox. So the Amri Inche Mimari Ashvosach Pare Ipra, that look, if you're owed money, even if the only possibility is to get paid back in bran, okay, just get paid back in bran, get paid back with whatever you can. So therefore, if Shimon doesn't have money to offer him a refund, so Reuven should just hold on to the ox. Yeah, but we're talking about a scenario where Shimon does have money to pay him back, and therefore Reuven says, I want a refund. Alright. Rav Omar Reza Mekachtos. Rav says, look, this is a Mekachtos, right? If Reuven goes to Shimon and says, Shimon, I was buying an ox for plowing, you sold me a shmendrik that gores people, I did not buy this ox for slaughtering, I bought this ox for plowing, but I did not buy this ox for slaughtering, I bought this ox for plowing, I want my money back. Rav says that is valid, it's a mekachtos, it was a mistake, and Reuven can get a cash refund, get his money back. Zil basar ruba denshe l'ridja hu dizabne, because Rav says that we go based on the majority, and most people purchase an ox for plowing, not for eating. Okay. Ushmuel Amr says Shmuel yachol sheyomelo l'shchita machartiv licha, that Shmuel says that Shimon can say to Reuven, look, I sold you the ox for slaughtering it immediately, not for keeping it around to plow. V'lo azlinan basruba, we don't go based on the majority who buy oxen for plowing. Ki azlinan basruba, because when we go by the majority is be'isura, that's only by isur ve'heter. Aval b'mamona, when it comes to dinei mominis, such as selling a cow, lo azlinan basruba, we do not go based on the majority. Ella, rather, hamotzi mechaver olav araya, that if Reuven is looking to get a refund, he's going to have to prove that he purchased the ox for plowing and not for slaughtering. Tanam Yochav, we also learned in a brisa like this that the splitting it thing is sumchis, but the rabbis would say amotzi mechaver olav araya. Shor shenogach es aparit, an ox that gores a cow, v'nimtza ubra b'tzida, and there's a dead baby next to it. Ve'enu yodea im ad shelo nogcha yolda. We don't know if the baby was born before the cow was gored, im mishenogcha yolda, or if it was born on account of the goring. Mishalim chatzi nezek lepar v'via nezek levala devei sumcha. Sumcha says that chatzi nezek will be paid for the cow, and quarter nezek will be paid for the baby. The Chacham say amotzi mechaver olav araya, that if the owner of the cow wants to get paid for the baby, he's going to have to prove that the cow was still pregnant at the time of the goring. Otherwise, he can't make any claims because amotzi mechaveru olav haraya. Omer Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, says Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, minayin lemotzi mechaveru olav haraya. How do we know this principle, this concept of amotzi mechaveru olav haraya? Shneimar, as the pasuk says, mi ba'dvar mi gash aleim, that if anybody has something that requires a legal opinion, a legal verdict, a legal decree, so go to the judges. Yagish raya aleim, bring a proof, and then you can collect. Maskef Ravashi, ha lomali cross. Rashi says, why do I need a pasuk to teach me that if I have a legal matter I should go to Bezdin? That's obvious. If you're in pain, if you're not feeling well, you go to the doctor. If you have a legal issue, you go to the Bezdin. I don't need a pasuk to tell me that if I have a legal issue, I go to Bezdin. Elikra, rather the pasuk of going to the Bezdin, Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avua, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avua, minayin she'ein nizkakin ela l'tovea tchila. How do I know that we first listen to the tovea first? Shneimar, as the pasuk says, mi ba'dvarim yigash aleim, that whoever has a matter should go to the Bezdin, should go to them. Yagish devarav aleim, they should bring their words, their claims first, meaning to the judges. Meaning, if you have Shimon makes a claim that he lent $1,000 to Reuven, he needs to get paid back. Now Reuven makes a counterclaim and says, yeah, but Shimon took a collateral from me, and I have yet to get that return. That has yet to be returned to me. So we basically have two competing claims. Shimon is first making the claim that he's owed $1,000 from Reuven. Reuven is then countering and making a claim, yes, but he had given a collateral to Shimon, and Shimon hasn't given that back. So those are two separate cases. Shimon claiming $1,000 from Reuven, and Reuven claiming that he had given a collateral. So we first listen to the Tovea, we first listen to Shimon, and we say, okay, Reuven, do you owe Shimon $1,000? If so, pay him back. At that point, we then open up the second case, which is, hey, Shimon, did Reuven give you a collateral? If so, give it back. Right? We view them as two separate cases, but the Tovea goes first. We first listen to Shimon, the lender, and we sort that out, and then we move on to Reuven, who's claiming that he had given some kind of a collateral. So, where am I? So again, minayin she'ein nizkakin el tovea tchila. How do we know that we listen to the claimant first, to Shimon in our case, the lender? Shneimar, as the pasuk says, mi ba'dvarim yigash aleim, that anybody who needs to should go to the judges. Yagish dvar v'aleim, that if you have a matter, if you're the plaintiff, so then you first make your case. Amin Ardai, the Nadain say, Paimim shenizkakin l'nitba tchila. There are, however, scenarios where we would first listen to the nitba, we would first listen to, in our case, Reuven, who's being claimed against, and that would be, for example, if, in a scenario where there's basically a time-sensitive issue. At the first, Rashi gives two explanations. The first one being that, if Reuven, so meaning Shimon's claiming that Reuven owes him $1,000. Now, Reuven's claiming that, yes, but I gave Shimon, let's say, property as a collateral. He has to give that back to me. So there are scenarios where we would first listen to Reuven's claim that he had given this collateral, and that could be, for example, a scenario if there are people in town today who would be willing to buy Reuven's property that Shimon currently has as a collateral, and if Reuven doesn't get back this property today, he won't be able to sell it because the potential buyers are going to leave town. So in a scenario like that, we'd first listen to Reuven about getting his property back. All right, and now to kind of close in and wrap up the daf. So now this was an interesting scenario where you have a cow that gores an ox, and then there's a baby cow next to the cow. And the question is, at the time that the cow gored the ox, was it still pregnant with the baby cow? And how does that affect the nezek payments? So the Mishnah said that you would pay chatzi nezek, half damages from the cow, and quarter damages from the baby. So chatzi nezek, vervia nezek. So the Gemara asks, I don't understand. You have a cow that gored to death an ox, and then you find that there's a baby. So we're saying if we're not sure if the cow was still pregnant at the time that it gored, so you pay chatzi nezek from the cow and quarter nezek from the baby. So a half plus a quarter is 3/4. Why would you pay 3/4 nezek? You only have to pay chatzi nezek. Right? So kule nizka, where am I? So chatzi nezek vervia nezek, palga chatzi nezek vervia nezek. The Mishnah talked about, chatzi nezek from the cow, vervia nezek from the baby for a total of 3/4 nezek. But palga nizka hu debai shalume. He only needs to pay chatzi nezek. Kule nizka nechiriva ma'avite. Why are we talking about 3/4 nezek over here? So Amar Abaye says, Abaye, chatzi nezek echod me'arba b'nezek, v'rvia nezek echod mishmone b'nezek. Did you get that? Abaye suggests that actually here's what it means. No, you're not paying 3/4 nezek. Actually what it means is, so this cow had gored an ox to death, and so the owner of the cow is chayiv chatzi nezek. So now technically you could say that half of the responsibility of the liability of the chatzi nezek is on the cow, and the other half of the chatzi nezek responsibility is on the baby. So the cow needs to pay its full half of the. It's a little bit confusing because we're talking about half of chatzi nezek, which is really essentially a quarter nezek, right? Meaning, as it is, if it's a short time, so you're only paying a total of half the value, half the damage, right? But now you're saying because it's divided among the cow and the baby, so each one technically is really only chai for half of that, which is really a quarter of the damage. So Abaye is saying that the chatzi nezek, that liability of the cow, is really half of a chatzi nezek, which is a quarter nezek, and in terms of the other half of the chatzi nezek, which the baby would be responsible for, but since we're not sure if the baby was born yet or not at the time of the goring, so you divide that in half and it's an eighth of a nezek. Okay? So we're not really talking about 3/4 of a nezek over here. So again, so chatzi nezek vervia nezek. So palga nizka u debai shalume kuli nizka nechiriva mai avid. Say Amar Abaye says Abaye chatzi nezek. That when we're talking about chatzi nezek from the cow, echod me'arba b'nizka. It's really a quarter of a nezek. Vervia nezek, and when we're talking about the quarter nezek for the baby, echod mishmona b'nezek, it's really an eighth of the damages. V'ipara uvalad dechad ninu. Now, if the cow and the baby belong to the same owner, well then, hachinami dematzi amle leval pari mimonavshach chatzi nezek havli. So the owner of the dead ox can say to the owner of the cow, look, if the owner owns the cow and the baby, So the victim says to the owner of the cow, look, you caused damage to my ox, it's dead now, you owe me chatzi nezek, just pay me chatzi nezek. But but the scenario here is where the cow belonged to one owner and the baby belonged to a different owner. So the victim now has to deal with two separate parties. So for example, if the owner of the pregnant cow sold the cow to somebody else but retained the rights to the fetus, for example. So now the victim needs to, the owner of the dead ox needs to, he goes, we're going to see exactly the negotiations here, but basically he needs to chase after the owner of the cow and the owner of the baby. And, the owner of the cow is saying, look, you're owed a total of half damages. I own the cow, somebody else owns the baby. I'm only responsible for half of those, half of your chatzi nezek claim. The owner of the baby is responsible for the other half. So v'idikadim tave leval para tchila. Now, if the owner of the ox would first go to the owner of the cow, so achinami the omarle, the owner of the cow could say leval. Achinami the omarle leval para paradidach azikton have the right isloch shutfei. So if the owner of the ox, the dead ox, goes first to the owner of the cow, so the owner of the dead ox could say to the owner of the cow, look, your cow killed my ox. Look, if you really do have another partner for the baby, bring a proof. Otherwise, I need you to pay me chatzi nezek. But here's a scenario where the owner of the dead ox first went to the owner of the baby, the omerle, that then the owner of the cow can say to the owner of the ox, clearly you are aware that I have a partner because you went to my partner first. So therefore, I'm going to split it with my partner and I'm only going to pay half of the chatzi nezek. Those who say, even if the owner of the dead ox goes to the owner of the cow first, the owner of the cow can still say, look, the omerle made the yadi the shutfa isti. Look, as far I know that I have a shutif, I have a partner. Go collect half of it from him. Is there a lot of noise outside? There might be, because I hear it even, I think, through my noise cancelling headphones. I think that there's a lot of noise. Yeah, because I hear it through my noise cancelling headphones, and these noise cancelling headphones are pretty good, which means that if I hear it, they must be making a lot of noise. Maybe my neighbor's yelling at them. That would be nice. It's nice when my neighbor yells at the people. It keeps things quiet. Well, aside from her yelling, but she doesn't do it enough. She's doing consistent. Okay, so now on my Rava says Rava Tabai atu echad me'arba benezek ve'echad mishmona benezek katani chatzi nezek ve'revi nezek katani. Rava pushes back against Abaye and he says, wait a second, Abaye, you're saying that chatzi nezek is really revi nezek and revi nezek is really shminis nezek? But we're talking about chatzi nezek and revi nezek, a half and a quarter, not a quarter and an eighth. So where am I? Elo Amar Rava rather says Rava L'olam b'para uvalad tichad. Really, we're talking about a scenario where it's the same owner for the cow and for the baby. And this is what we're saying. Isa lipara. Look, if the cow is here in front of us, mishtalim chatzi nezek mipara. So then pay the chatzi nezek from the cow. Leisa lipara. But if the para is not around to be paid from, he went to the rushes down by the riverside. So mishtalim revi nezek mivalad. So then the owner of the dead ox can get quarter damage from the baby, since we're not sure if the baby was born at the time of the goring. Because we don't know if the baby was born yet at the time that the cow gored. But if we are certain that the baby was not yet born when the cow gored, well then, mishtalim kule chatzinezek mivolod, then you can even pay the entire chatzinezek from the volod, assuming that the baby is worth enough money to cover the chatzinezek. Rava the time, and Rava is consistent with his reasoning to Amar Rava that says Rava parshe zika, that if a cow gores, gove mivlada, you can even collect from its baby. My time alkom gufa he, because the baby of the ox of the cow is considered part of its body, whereas tanagol shezika eno gove mi beitzasa my time of persha ba'amahu. But a hen that gores, you cannot collect from its egg, because that's considered something that is separate from its body. Whereas the baby of a cow is considered like part of the body, and therefore if the cow is gone, you can even pay, if we know that the cow was still pregnant at the time that it gored, you can pay the damages from the baby. Friends, that was Daf Mem Vav, Masechta BavaKama. We started the 5th parak of Masechta BavaKama. We learned some interesting sugyas about Amotzi Mechaver Olav Araya, which is pretty interesting. Peace out.